All right. So today is a big give day. What are big give days? That's the day we share in a gift to an organization that we may be overlooked by the greater community, and our outreach team shares in that gift in a special way. And today it is for New Life Recovery Center, which is in Lebanon. And these gentlemen are going to tell us a little more about the work they do there and the work they do in general. So first, we have Larry Blue. What a great name.
Good morning, I'm Larry Blue. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ that's been set free from the alphabet of addiction. I say it that way because it's easier to say that than name all the things that God has set me free from. I'm not here today to give or share my own testimony. All my dirty laundry is out there on the internet. I've been on the 700 Club 4 times, so if you Google Larry Blue on the 700 Club, you can see that history of my life from the worldly point of view that I used to live. But I was the director at New Life Recovery Home back in 2006. I've stayed closely connected to the board of directors, especially Penny Rader and her husband Lane, and share in the vision today. And I want to be here today to support what's going on with this donation that this church has put together, and the mission and the vision that New Life Recovery has to expand and grow. Today, what I do for the state today is I go around the whole state and I certify and inspect the recovery residences. So what we would commonly call halfway houses. And there's 93 of them certified in the state today, and I was so happy when New Life Recovery Home reached out to me and said, we want to become certified. We want to meet these national standards and make sure that our level of care is a good level of care for people that are coming in that are hurt and broken. And so they became certified several months ago, and I'm excited to be here today to support them in any way that I can. We're going to be available in the lobby afterwards to answer questions because I don't want to take up too much time. There's a lot of other people here to talk to you today about what addiction looks like and how broken it is. And just like we sang in the song earlier, one day at a time is so important for us addicts. And that support that you're providing today with this donation is so gracious and so important to an addict, just one day at a time, and that support is so critical. So if we can get through today, clean and sober, one day at a time, that's what's so important. I'm supported today by my girlfriend, Chris, that's here, and that vital, important support is really what I want to stress to you today. So thank you so much for having me today.
Great. Here, I'll take that one. Thanks. And you, sir?
Hello, my name is Martin Berg. I'm the Executive Director of New Life Recovery Center in Lebanon. I've been there just since about the middle of April of this year. And as Larry said, we're now certified. That was the first thing that we accomplished. And for the last couple of months, we've added an actual treatment program. And we have plans with the board of directors to expand from a 24-bed facility. We wanted to build a new building that'll house 100 men. We deal only with the men in the community, and there's another facility for women that just started up there. So Lebanon has a lot going for it in the field of addictions. I want to thank each and every one of you for your generous gift to New Life. It's very much appreciated, and the men there appreciate every single bit of help they get, and so does the staff and the board of directors. So we thank you for your generous donation. It was kind of interesting. I come here and I run into an old friend who's going to be speaking a little bit later about his recovery. I myself have been sober over 31 years, and I also will be available in the lobby after the service if you have any questions for me. Thank you.
Martin, on behalf of the Garden Outreach and the Garden Community, I present this check for New Life Recovery. May God continue to bless you in your ministry. God bless you.
Hi, my name is Penny, and by the grace of God, I had 25 years of recovery this year from alcohol and drugs. So thank you. And I'm one of those who started out like all of God's masterpieces. He had a perfect plan for me, but due to some life circumstances that were beyond my control, but mostly by my own poor choices, I accumulated the grime of guilt and shame and regret that comes along with alcohol and drug abuse. When I made a decision to surrender it all to God's mercy, He began the restoration process. I was forgiven, but my part was to continue to get in right relationship with God, myself, and others. I chose to use a 12-step program of recovery that I personally believe is God-inspired, but that's not the only way to recovery, but it's worked for me to this day. First, I had to admit that my life had become unmanageable and that my behavior was out of control. I had to turn my will over to God. I had to list and confess all my faults to God, to myself, and to another human being that I trusted. I had to submit to the changes that God wanted to make in my life and humbly ask Him to remove my character defects. I had to evaluate all my relationships and forgive others and make amends to those that I had harmed. I have to continue to grow spiritually by studying God's Word and have daily prayer to know God's will for my life. Then, and maybe the most important for me, I have to continue to carry the message of recovery to others. I'm still a work in progress. God is still painting His miracle masterpiece, but the restoration of joy and purpose in my life is now dependent on my surrender to His will, not on my own. And I can tell you, if I can recover from 30 years of alcohol and drug abuse, anyone can if they choose to. Please pray the serenity prayer with me that is near and dear to our hearts. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen.
So blessed. Today's service has come about in a variety of different ways, but do you know one thing that I want to note about today's service is it really started coming together about 2 years ago with somebody filling out one of these connection cards. Gary Halverson filled out a connection card almost 2 years ago. You know, each week I say if you ever want to share in a conversation or if you want to come to coffee with Carolyn or whatever it is, fill out the card and we'll make sure we get you connected. Well, Gary actually did that, was one of the few people who followed through and did that. And what was interesting was that conversation then led to a connection. We made a connection through life stories and through life experience. And then it led to a profound commitment on Gary's part. This next video is a bit of Gary's story.
I was looking for a place that I was in a bad point in my life, and I was looking for a church, and somebody said go to the Garden because they're very accepting, very open, and very not getting in your life, but take the best and leave the rest kind of church, and that's what I was looking for. I had a bad situation growing up in a religion that was very difficult, very God is to be feared, and I was very put off by that. And I asked around in that Garden, they said people talk to is a place where you're going to be comfortable. The Garden's important to me because it accepts everyone. Ever since I started coming there, I realized they're not there to collect your money or after you for what you have to give. feel free to be who you are and believe as you believe. And it's nice to have a 20-minute sermon that is full of information and not preaching at you about what's going on. And I also was very impressed that they give to different organizations. They're very much of a steward of AA, for example, and all kinds of different organizations they give to. It became clear to me that my life has not been going the way I wanted it to, and I lost a daughter to drugs and alcohol, and I've sort of, since I've been going to the garden, I'm seeing how important it is to me to leave a considerable amount of my estate to the garden so the garden continues after I'm no longer here. This is very important to me, and it's a mission of mine, and it's what I'm going to do.
I don't know if you noted, but Gary said his favorite part of the service is the very short sermon. I almost fell off my seat with that. So today we have a scripture text that is kind of our focus text. And the focus text is, "For we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus so that we can do good things He planned for us long ago." That's from Paul's letter to the Ephesians. It's a reminder to all of us, indeed, that God created us with a spark and a light and an energy that's to transform not only our own lives, but this world. But sometimes life gets in the way. There are many conditions in this world, aren't there? And that light or that energy we have gets covered up with darkness or gets weighted down with different bricks like anger or addiction or whatever it may be. Today we're going to talk specifically about addiction and the challenges that we face in life, and Gary has been gracious enough to be willing to share a bit of his story with us. Now, we're honored to have Gary with us, but he also wants to note that a few things. First of all, his story, of course, is not everyone's story. And then also, central to part of his recovery process is anonymity. And he recognizes today that there are those who he would honor and recognize that anonymity is important to some people. But he is willing to step out today, and we are so thankful that you are going to honor us with your story, with your life experience, and share with us a little bit about what life was like before recovery, what happened to lead to recovery, and then life after. So friends, will you join me in welcoming Gary to the garden?
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, everybody. I was one of the people that carried these bricks around unknowingly, and they're very heavy. I grew up in Minnesota, and I started drinking when I was around 15 years old with friends, and we were always able to find someone to get us the alcohol. And alcohol was a freeing experience of partying, enjoying life. And what I found as I went through my life in my early years, through from 15 to early 20s to mid 20s, I wasn't having any consequences really of drinking. I was able to have a young age vitality of not being damaged by it and still going to work every day and not have a problem with it other than internally. As I got into my later 20s and early 30s, trouble started to be beginning. I was one of those drinkers at that time that had blackouts. And those of you that don't know what that is I would be at a party or something, and the next morning I would wake up in a parking lot in somebody's house and in a rest area, and I didn't know how I got there. Or I could go to a party and friends the next day can say, "We really like that story about your fishing trip." And I said, "Oh, okay. I don't remember giving you that story and telling that story." The crazy thing about that, you got to understand, I was driving when I was doing these blackouts. So I was out on the highway And I want to step in with this at this point. I had a friend who talked about her brother and wanted me to speak with her brother after he got out of prison. And I said, oh my goodness, what's he in there for? He was in there for vehicular manslaughter. He killed somebody with his car. Not just somebody, but this was his 12-year-old daughter that was riding with him. She died because of the car accident. I didn't get a chance to meet him when he got out of prison. He didn't want anything to do with recovery. About 3 years later, he died of alcoholism. It was a terrible shame and guilt to carry around that he was responsible, he felt, for that situation. I myself then, working for a wholesale company as a salesman for them in Minnesota, and we'd sell products, and the next day the drivers would deliver them to bars and restaurants and different places like that. I came in one Friday, my boss said, come on in here and I want to talk to you. He said, you know what? Your drinking has become a problem, and I want you to go into a treatment center. I've set it up. And I said, I don't think I drink any worse than anybody else. The rest of the salesmen, we all drink the same. He said, no, you're not the rest of them. You're you, and you drink. Your drinking's out of control, in my opinion. Well, I said, I've been here 11 years, and every year I've hit my numbers for you, and I made you money, and I pulled my weight. And I said, what are you going to do if I go to a treatment center? What are you going to do without me? And he came back with a wonderful response. He says, you're fired. Okay, now you got my attention. I guess it takes an alcoholic one right alongside the head to get my attention, and that's what I took. And he said, you're going to go. And you know what? I went. And I wasn't fired because my insurance covered me. And I told him, I said, I'll be there. I'll go up there a couple days, and I'll prove to you I'm not an alcoholic, and then they'll release me. He said, okay, let's do that. I went up there, and I was there for 38 days in a treatment center, and it changed my life. I really had an issue in the beginning with him. I really disliked him, putting me in a corner, changing my life and putting me in a treatment center. After I got out, I couldn't go back to work there because of the bars and restaurants I called on, so I went on and got into the insurance business, and everything had worked out. But sobriety then has meant a lot to me. One of the things it did after the first year is I was able to go to that boss that put me in that treatment center and said, thank you very much. I think you saved my life. And he shared with me that both of his parents died of alcoholism. He knew what he was seeing when he saw me. And funny thing is, a couple of years later, he said, do you want to come back to work here? I said, no, I can't do that. I said, it's too many old memories, too many old habits. And I thank you, though. I was really nice to him. In sobriety, one of the things I learned, and you hear things, and these are slogans and things that come out of AA or anywhere, and one of them is, excuse me, one of them is, there's 3 ways to go with an alcoholic or a drug addict, and that's locked up, covered up, or sobered up. Those are your choices. 2 of those, 3 of those are not very good. We have, New Life here to help men that may want to go into and check them out and see if you have a problem, they can help. There's Fairbanks, there's NA for Narcotics Anonymous, there's AA for Alcoholics Anonymous, and there's other programs out there you may want to explore. And the sad thing is, when you deal with families, and if you got an alcoholic or drug addict in the family, they affect the whole family. If you've got a son and you say, listen, I'm going to cut you off, and I'm not going to, this is the 4th car that you totaled out. I'm not buying you another car. You should start thinking, how come he totaled 4 cars? I mean, enabling somebody is one thing, making them accountable and responsible for their actions. An intervention got me here, and I'm one of the few. I was talking to Pastor Carolyn a little bit about Dr. Phil. If you ever watched Dr. Phil, and he confronts somebody, and as they talk through the program and through his show, at the end, he says, I have this treatment center here. Will you accept the idea of going there and looking at your recovery? And most people, yes, I'll go. And then they have later on how it changes their life. And it changes your life because now you're responsible for your actions. You can deal with them in sobriety. You're not having alcohol or drugs cover them up. And you're not harming any other person. You're responsible is a big thing. And that's my main message is that sobriety is a great way to go. And it's just that, how do you get here? And I hope some of you and some of your family members or even yourself are able to take a look at some sobriety. Thank you.
So chances are with the opioid epidemic and alcoholism in the nation that there are people in this room who have been impacted, either themselves or a member of their family. And I love the story of your intervention, because it's truly, he loved you enough to say you needed this intervention. And at the time, you were making great money and numbers for him and all of those things. You noted that he had your bag packed and he had you ready to go, and you really had no other choice but to do that. But in the end, it was ultimately your decision. Yeah. And so today, we recognize that it ultimately has to be the addicted person's decision. And we want to recognize that today, and that we go with you wherever you are on the journey. The Garden wants to be a safe place where you can be, where if you enabled, maybe yours is an enabling stone. But hopefully this conversation will give you an opportunity to consider how you can support others. Tell me a little bit about life now.
Well, today I'm retired out of the insurance business. I'm still active with friends, and I have a lot of friends in AA. And it's attend meetings yet. It's a good center of my life. I have a daughter who's in in Iowa now, and I put her in a couple of treatment centers. That didn't work. She has done so many drugs and so many different drugs that she is no longer capable of even functioning, holding down a job in her early 40s. Her mother's not far from her and helps her. But she is an example of the walking, basically dead. I'm waiting for a phone call. When's the funeral? I can no longer have her in my life because of her toxic way of life, and if she come to visit, I don't know what's going to be missing. I don't know what she's going to do, and I don't know what she's going to take. And I pray for her that she finds something in life that gives her some peace and serenity, whatever that may be.
Carrie, I think the thing that I find really amazing about your life is, sometimes we think we've been recovered and now life is perfect. But clearly, you have continued to have those conditions that come with life, divorce and your daughter's struggles and different struggles in life. But what amazes me is your ability to live into your recovery in ways that have led you to be incredibly generous. You've been generous with your time and in sharing in ministry and conversation with me. You've been generous with your time in becoming part of the PALS network, where you're helping people in Indianapolis. And then you've been become generous in perpetuity. You're helping the Garden in the years to come. And that is such an important lesson for all of us. That indeed, if we live in the power of God's grace, and if we live in the power of God's love, we can live in such a way that we can have generous hearts in the midst of the conditions of this world. We are thankful for you sharing your story today. Again, how many years in recovery?
34 years.
34 years in recovery.
Thank you.
We give God thanks for your willingness to share your story today and to remind us that we all have these bricks and we are all children of God who can let these bricks go. Let's pray together. God, we give you thanks today for Gary, for his amazing tenacity and spirit, for your work in him, for his love for you, and how he loves others. We ask, God, that you continue to be with all those who struggle on this day with an active addiction. We pray for Gary's daughter. We pray for all of those who have been overcome by darkness. May today give you an opportunity to bring a little light, to remove a little bit of the heaviness, to help us to see indeed that there is nothing that can separate us from you. You love us so much that you are willing to take our anger, our addictions to alcohol and to drugs and to shopping and to food and whatever it may be, and you love us. Give us the courage to name and claim that which we may no longer bear, and truly run and jump and be children of your grace and mercy. Amen.
Amen.